YouTube Ozek going the Goat House is back with a video I'm not really sure I need to be doing, but we got our takeaways anyways for the Packers versus Niners Thursday night game. Maybe we'll talk about what to expect from these teams going forward as well, to give us a little more to talk about, because this should be pretty quick on the takeaways, because it was the game fell over pretty early, but we'll break it down like we do every Friday on the Thursday game, and then on Mondays we have the Sunday games recap, power ranking, score predictions, a lot. We got a lot covering the NFL. Got some mid-season videos coming out already, and then within the next week, we have a Twitter, Instagram, podcast, Patreon, a lot going on. Almost at that 60K. Appreciate the support. For that Patreon, score predictions, extra score predictions, my bets of the week for NFL and college football, playoff predictions every week, updated, and a lot more. Always adding more, keeping the Patreon members involved in videos going forward as well. But yeah, the Packers pretty much got what they needed here to get back on track. Good momentum win, big win, impressive, really on both sides of the ball, and they dominate. They beat up a beat-up Niners team, I guess we'll say. But yeah, the game it fell over pretty early. It wasn't really close. Now the score doesn't really show that it was close, but it kind of shows closer than it actually was. But quick takeaways. Anybody that watched the game pretty much knows this stuff. You know, Davante Adams was just unbelievable again. You know, can consider him the best receiver in football right now for sure. You know, I think if he played every game this year, we would probably be saying he's the best. You know, the thing here is, even though the Niners are beat up, they've been pretty good in the secondary. They've been pretty good, pretty solid on defense. You know, and Davante Adams was really the only one, you know, for targets for the Packers that really consistently got the ball thrown his way, and that's really not a shocker. But the Niners really just still couldn't stop it, you know. We'll talk about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We'll talk about him right now. You know, he only had 2 catches. You know, he had 2 touchdowns, but he only had those were his 2 catches. So really, it was only Adams that was getting those targets, and it just makes it that much better. You know, for his case, that he's that good. Where he's getting all the targets, you know it. You still can't stop him. Wish they would have probably, you know, bracketed him, doubled him a little more. You know, that would have been more ideal. The Vikings, not all the time, but they tended to do it there, here and there, and that helped. He still scored all the touchdowns in that game, but it helped in the open field, I suppose. So I wish the Niners would have done that a little more. Rodgers, you know, maybe minus missing Adams on one throw early in the game, was very much on some of those balls. He's just dropping in the breadbasket. You know, some of them, you know, don't look like they're like the most accurate ball, but they're exactly kind of pinpoint exactly where they need to be, where the defender can't get it and where the receiver can make the play. So yeah, Rodgers was on his game. Not really a surprise. But yeah, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, yeah, had 2 touchdowns on 2 catches. Did have a bad drop. You know, I'm not gonna. People have drops. I mean, he has more drops than most receivers, but 1 drop in a game, not gonna really. You know, he should catch it. Not gonna rip him for that, but. Yeah, my thing with Valdes-Scantling, he's just good for like 2 catches and a drop at least a game. So he did, for those 2 catches, did have 2 touchdowns. But with his speed, you know, he's got a rare combination of speed and length. You know, I wish he can get more separation. You know, so that's why he's kind of in the middle here. Yeah, I had 2 touchdowns, but wish he would have more catches, more opportunities. I wish he would get more separation given his speed. So honestly, he should be having these touchdown games. He should be getting more separation to give help to Rodgers / Davante Adams. So that's why I'm kind of in the middle for him. Aaron Jones had some nice runs early. You know, didn't do anything crazy because they didn't really need him to, but he looked healthy. You know, he's running hard, looked healthy. Honestly, I wish they took him out. They did take him out eventually. I wish they would have taken him out a little earlier, just because they had the game won. You know, you don't want to risk anything, but that's a good sign. You know, he's healthy. Dexter Williams, who I was looking forward to seeing, had 2 carries for 8 yards. You know, if you're doing the math, that's 4 yards per carry, which is pretty good, but only off of 2 carries. But then he gets hurt, so that's unfortunate. So sitting around the practice squad for a while, I guess that'll do it. But that's unfortunate because, you know, he was a pretty good runner at Notre Dame. You know, as a ball carrier, was actually very solid. You know, I think deserving of being on an actual active roster, but you know, he can't really catch, so that's why he wasn't. But it's a shame. But Irvin was slow at first, but then they started to give him the ball, you know, through the air a little bit. You see the speed he has. But getting pressure on Mullins, you know, very, very early on, they weren't getting much. I was kind of getting ready to kind of rip the Packers because how could you not get – because it was very early, though. It was definitely too early to rip them a little bit. But I was kind of thinking, how could you just beat up offensive line? Trent Williams not in there. And I'm talking really early in the game. There was times where Mullins had time. I was like, where's the Smith brothers? Even though they're not brothers. I know people tend to call them that. But where are the Smiths at? What's going on? I'm kind of thinking, this Packers defense still a little underwhelming this year. Look at last year. It was climbing every week, getting better and better, made themselves a top 10 defense. You're thinking maybe top 5 this next year. It's pretty much the same defense minus Blake Martinez, which they do miss him, but I don't know if he makes that much of a difference. The fans didn't really like him too much, but he is better than what they got. But I don't know if that makes that much of a difference. What I think it is, I think it shows how great of a season last year Zadarius Smith had. Now, he's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. But if you watch him play, he wasn't just an edge rusher. He's rushing from everywhere, inside, outside, on the line, off the ball, everywhere. And it was pre-snap, but yeah, it was while the offense is on the field, getting ready to snap the ball. He's kind of getting in the quarterback's head. He's like, looks like he's gonna rush off the edge, and he moves spots. So I think teams and I talked about it last year. He created plays for other players on the defense last year. And that's why he was my pick. He was a matchup nightmare. He was a game plan nightmare. Teams didn't know what to do. That's why he's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year, on top of all the production he had. But now this year, my thinking is teams are starting to kind of figure him out a little bit. They aren't moving him around as much, which I do think is odd. But they're starting to kind of figure that out, and it makes everyone else's job tougher. So I think they're relying on him. And they have other good players, don't get me wrong. Jair Alexander's been great, but he got knocked out of this game, unfortunately. But then, they started getting some pressure. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith had a nice one that forced an interception somewhat early in that game. Hit Mullins as he threw it. Not sure why he threw it. And then that was kind of up for grabs for an interception. Darnell Savage should have had an interception. I think I was talking in a video yesterday that we were talking about, the bold predictions video, if the Packers can get several turnovers, and I was listing off some playmakers that can get their hands on the ball. If I remember, I listed off Darnell Savage, and then he let me down there dropping that ball. He tried to jump for it for some reason, which you just catch it in stride, you catch the ball. I think jumping hurt him. Not really sure why he did that, but not the end of the world here. But yeah, still, I think the first guy seems to always miss in terms of tackling, and the angles aren't the greatest for the Packers. So that's still work in progress, I think, there for them. Early in the game, the Niners were actually able, Mullins had some time. They were able to get the ball to midfield, no problem, and then Mullins do something stupid or, to kind of blow it. So because, kind of the poor tackling, poor angles for the tackles, they were able to move the ball a little bit early, but nothing concerning, I suppose. But that's just kind of a work in progress thing for the Packers. But yeah, to the Niners, Richie James, minus a drop, looked pretty electric. You see the speed he has, and how electrifying he is after the catch. He was fantastic. So yeah, I think that's, against the speed, I think the Packers are angles and really couldn't get a good attempt on a guy like Richie James. McKinnon looked good. They didn't give him the ball enough until the end. The last drive they wanted to try to, the 2-minute drill is less than that, but you get my point. And they wanted to score, and they went McKinnon, Richie James, they went McKinnon again, and it worked because he's probably your best offensive playmaker there. And they were kind of insisting on Hasty when McKinnon's just clearly better all around. So they should have been getting McKinnon the ball, throughout the whole game, in my opinion, because he's that much of a playmaker for them, especially compared to what they got in the field. Yeah, but Richie James looked pretty good. So they should be using him, but they should get some receivers back. Fred Warner, no surprise here. Fred Warner was all over the place. He's been fantastic. One of the better linebackers in football. Very good coverage, rangy-wise. Yeah. Kind of going back to the McKinnon thing, it was late in the game, I believe. The game felt like it was over already by far at that point, but the Niners were moving, and they had a 4th down coming up. They hurried up and got on the ball and tried to do a QB sneak with Nick Mullins. I don't know. I don't really hate the call. I like that. I like you kind of go outside to, other teams really don't do that. Get on the ball and then try to do that. I kind of like that part of it, but do you really trust Mullins over a guy like McKinnon? So that's kind of where I question it, but I don't hate it too much. So crucial moments, not going to McKinnon, going with Mullins or Hasty. Don't really agree with it. But Mullins was off. I was saying I kind of, based on the sample size we have of Mullins and Beathard throughout their careers, I was kind of leaning towards Mullins, but that was a rough game. His line, his beat up line, or his backup lineman, didn't help him too much. He had some pressure, but letting the ball go when he shouldn't, he looked terrified back there. Getting the case of the happy feet, not too happy in this case, I suppose, but chopping his feet too much. Garoppolo kind of had the similar problems, nowhere near as bad, but some terrible footwork with those Niners quarterbacks. So maybe it is Beathard time again. Receiver unit outside Richie James didn't help, and that kind of was obvious because Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne all out. So that, and they cut Dante. They cut Dante Pettis, release him, goes to the Giants, and then all of a sudden the other guys were out, so they probably wouldn't have cut. He probably would have been their best receiver out there. Receiver, they couldn't really get great separation. I think people expected Trent Taylor kind of be the guy. He was disappointing. There was a play. It's one play, but there was a play where the ball probably could have been picked, and people kind of blame it on Mullins. It was in the red zone. It might have been before that fourth down sneak, if I'm not mistaken there. But Taylor had a simple slant, and it's just very poor footwork. He made it drag on. He's supposed to be the quick guy too. He made it drag on longer than it needed to be because of his footwork there, and that almost ended up an interception. And I think he had a chance to catch it too, and he couldn't come up with it, but he made it harder than it needed to be. So you could see they were missing the receivers. Justin School was pretty bad. It was like, it's a backup tackle, but it was at the point where, and I hate to bash the guy that much, but it was at the point where, like, how does this guy have a job? Because some of the, like, Preston Smith on that basically where he forced the interception, and Zadarius Smith getting the strip sack and those blocking attempts, those guys didn't really do. There was nothing special on those pass rush reps. There was no special moves there. He kind of just gave those up, just very poor attempt. I think for the Preston Smith one, he kind of just like all of a sudden went to grab him, and it just made. And then Smith then it had a nice swim move, but that was kind of after like the contact was made, and like after like there was already a blocking attempt. So it was kind of a free given. A lot of people would have got around him with an easy swim move there. And then the even worse one was the Darius Smith strip sack. He's kind of in place with him, but then he kind of got too tight and then lunged at him, which is an absolute no. You don't see any tackles doing that. Any tackles in the NFL doing that. That's an absolute no. That's like a college level mistake, maybe worse. So that it's just confusing there how bad the play was. So yeah, Mullins didn't have too much help with them, but with in situations like that, but. Yeah, still wasn't good. The secondary / coverage, why I say that, almost the same thing, but the guys in the secondary didn't play that good, but I didn't know, they're used to their cover 3, and they had some man coverage, though. And the Packers were picking that apart, and the man coverage was one guy on Devontae Adams. I don't really agree with that, so they kind of just the coverage, the schemes for the defense, so that's more coaching a little bit, but they are beat up. The guys in the secondary didn't play that great, though. Just too many, Marquez Valdes-Scantling just standing wide open, able to turn towards the ball and catch the ball with ease, stuff like that. Just, Adams getting wide open. There was times where they were pretty tight in coverage too, whether it was Mosley or Verrett, but I wish there was multiple guys on them. But sometimes they were tight in coverage and lost, so I don't really blame them for that. It's Devontae Adams, but there was a lot of times where guys are just so wide open, and yeah, so that wasn't good. Marcel Harris on a deep shot, just. Another mistake, we were talking about, again, I hate to get on guys about this, but call it like I see it here. Just like School, he's making mistakes that, guys shouldn't make in the NFL. And same when, there was a play, a deep ball that Marcel Harris let by him. He stayed in his back pedal for so long, and it was just like an awkward one too. He's kind of staying in place, just chopping his feet. It's like those are mistakes I really shouldn't see once. I know he's a backup that plays a lot because of injuries. It's a guy they like, but and he's made plays in the past at times, but that's like a mistake I shouldn't see happen. Like I don't even want to see a high school guy do that, So I don't know. It was a sloppy game for people will look at it like the Packers are better and the Niners are beat up, and that's the case. But I don't know. Too many. It's a legitimate excuse, but for a play like that I shouldn't see from a certain receiver, like I said, making mistakes with his footwork, the offensive lineman with making mental mistakes that just should never happen, and a guy in coverage too. I just mistakes that I should never see happen. And then kind of going back right before the half, actually, I love Kyle Shanahan as well, but yeah, he was planning to run the clock out. It was about to be third down. They ran it down and called a timeout. I think about 55 seconds left. And then so it was going into third down. And that's just playing to not get killed. I hate that. It always ends up biting people, and it kind of did it in this case. Well, okay, maybe it did. But it's just playing to not get beat by. You're already going to get beat by. You're getting beat by a lot. Let's play to not get beat by even more, but that doesn't matter at all. That doesn't go into the standings. It doesn't go if how your team plays next week. It doesn't go in if you make the playoffs or not or on. At that point, they were moving the ball decently, like not like great, or maybe I wouldn't call it good, but they were moving at a decent pace. They were just making mistakes when they got to midfield or things like that, and you're kind of just giving up at that point. You're playing not to get killed. I hate that. And Aikman and Buck were kind of almost applauding it. I like those guys, but I can't believe they said that. I hate that. Good job. You're playing to not let the Packers kill you. They already are. It makes no sense to me. So then they throw a ball to Richie James. Richie James had a good game, but that was his, and he had a drop, so that was a bad one. He turned way before he caught the ball. But if he would have got that first down, he was about to be tackled inbounds. So it was 55 seconds in rolling with you just used your last timeout because you wanted to run the clock down. So they probably, you hurt yourself if you wanted to get points, which you desperately needed points. So I do think it kind of backfired on them. They ended up stopping Rodgers on a sack, but I think they could have tried a little harder too, but they weren't really worried because they were all big time. So they were already getting, they already had that lead, and the Niners. I just don't like that. I just don't like that from Shanahan there. Some people may disagree, but I really don't think you should. It's not a good look for your team either, So there's a lot of things like that, little things, even if it's one play or couple plays from certain players that I just didn't like. I just didn't like, and I know there's a legitimate excuse. They have too many guys out, and guys had to step up last second, and it's legitimate, sure. But there's things I should not be seeing, whether it's like I said, with the coaching decisions or with the players. But yeah, it's good for the Packers to get back on track there. Even though the Niners were missing some guys, you think that Shanahan had the game plan, based on last year. It is pretty much the same Packers team, so it's a good win. Prime time away. It's good to get out there, get the momentum going there. For them. So that was good. They just got to stay healthy. It's weird with the Packers because there's teams that are much more beat up, like the Niners, like the Cowboys, the Eagles, just top of my head. There's a lot of teams that are beat up. Pretty much almost every team is beat up. So I don't like, and I'm not saying Packers or Packers fans say this. I'm just saying I didn't hear them say this at all, actually. But I'm kind of saying in general, I don't like when teams are, outside the Niners maybe are like, yeah, we only lost because we're injured or this or this. Look at the whole rest of the NFL. But then you look at the Packers, back to my point, yeah, they're not as beat up as the Niners, but you look at who's been beat up. Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Bakhtiari, who's maybe the best tackle in football. So they might not have a big number of guys. Kenny Clark missed games as well. But they got like the top tier guys that kind of help make their team. So they've, it's just good to get out there and get a win. Even though it may not look the greatest their play was, but it may not look the greatest because who you're playing and they're beat up. But in the Packers' sake, yeah, I think they've actually. My point is, they've actually been more beat up than I think people realize. Not because the high number, Niners side. Niners got the impact guys and the high numbers of guys. Packers got some crucial guys. And I kind of realized that. I did my midseason top 5 player rankings at each position, halfway through the season like I always do. And you got guys like Devontae Adams in there. You got guys like Aaron Jones in there, Bakhtiari in there. And these are guys that missed a chunk of games, and they're still towards the top, making those top 5s, which is hard to do because they're proven they're that good, they're that important to the team, and they've missed games. So, yeah, basically my point is, it's just no matter the circumstances, it's really good that the Packers got out here and got a win here, and guys are getting healthier. They do need Bakhtiari back, but yeah. What to expect going forward? The Packers I can't wait for that Colts game because that's like a bad matchup for both teams, in a way, which I love. Just weird matchups. I love it because. And that's coming up, too. And the Titans at the end of the year, I think that's a bad matchup for the Packers, but it's freezing cold at Lambeau at the end of the year. I think it's going to be prime time. So those are games, I just can't wait for. I just can't wait for those games. But, yeah, the Colts game, like the Colts might have the defense to not lock down, but slow down Devontae Adams. and make the Packers distribute the ball elsewhere. And they potentially can do more than just that to maybe possibly get after Rodgers. They're not crazy with the pressure. Last week they were, but they have the defense to kind of slow them down. But the Colts' weakness is playing against teams that just score, no matter what, even if you have a great defense. And can they keep up? Can they keep up and not turn the ball over? That's kind of the question with the Colts. So you got questions on both sides. That's why I can't wait for that game. That's gonna be a great game. And the Titans, it's almost a not nightmare. I guess the Titans' offense is a pretty terrible matchup for the Packers because Derrick Henry and the tackling issues, the run-stopping issues, and they can beat you with that play-action pass as well. But the Packers should be able to move the ball on them. And it's going to be in Lambeau, freezing cold. So those are games I just cannot wait for. Packers-Bears, you see offense versus defense there. It's going to decide NFC North. So looking forward to those games. I'm not worried about the Packers. They're a contender. They're going to make the run. I just don't want those Vikings type games to pop up again. We just don't want it to pop up. And then the question of the Bucs game, is that a matchup issue in the playoffs? So a lot to look forward to the Packers. I'm not worried though. I don't think really anybody is. For the Niners, they might just be too beat up. I do think there was a lot of slop because sloppy play because guys kind of got thrown in there, last second. And they should get some. Trent Williams is going to come back. What if Trent Williams was in this game? What if those guys that are false positive were in this game? Trent Williams, Debo was a little, hurt anyway. So just for the sake, we'll just say maybe Debo wasn't 100%. He could have been. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne. If they were in this game, I still picked the Packers, but it's a whole different ball game. Mainly the Trent Williams case. So the Niners definitely could beat teams here. Tough division. Playoffs might be, I don't want to say long shot, but kind of getting close to that. But still a team to keep our eye on because they can be sneaky. And it's not going to be this Niners team that shows up every week. I promise that. I don't know if I can promise that because they might continue to get beat up because they have a lot of guys that have injury potential and they're just unfortunate, a mixture of both. But so maybe I can't promise that, but they can be a sneaky matchup. They can win games. And my point is all hope should not be lost for sure. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens with both these teams going forward. But that's going to wrap up Thursday Night Recap. Wasn't sure about this one. We made it into something here. We made it into something. We always do here at the Goat House. Plenty of extra NFL content on the channel and on the Patreon, on the Twitter as well. Link in the description, comments for anything you may need. Please smash the like button. Please subscribe, turn notifications on. We much appreciated. You won't regret it. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.